I titled today's mind map, Your Inward Relationship That Expresses. The premise of our conversation is this quote here from Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, in which he states, "The answer exists now in much the same way when we set out to find a new idea. That the idea, or we could say answer, exists already somewhere and set out to find it." Now, this is a book that speaks of the self-image. A number of weeks ago, I released a video on being your own best friend. Tuesday, we talked about suggestion and autosuggestion, and the realization that we are suggesting to ourselves all day long, and that although it may appear, the key is really it may appear that the outer world is suggesting to us, when in actuality, as we go deeper, we allow ourselves to interpret or experience the suggestions in relation to the outer world as a reality or not. In other words, we believe it to be true or not. This is all happening within ourselves. Now, Napoleon Hill, he said something interesting. He said, "The turning point in the lives of those who succeed usually comes at the moment of some crisis to which they are introduced to their other selves." Now, when we were children, we would conjure up, many of us, imaginary best friends. And we would build relationships with these imaginary best friends. And they would help us make sense of the different areas of our life. We felt that we had those that we could say existed within us that we would build a relationship with. It genuinely felt like they understood us. When I was flying back from Playa del Carmen, I went on vacation last week to Mexico. I went into my imagination and had a conversation with myself. Now, this wasn't the first time that I did it. I actually do it a lot. I've mentioned it all throughout the videos. I travel in my imagination to worlds. I have conversations with aspects of myself, with myself. And he is myself. I see him in my imagination, and I have a relationship with him. Now, all throughout my life, he said interesting things to me. And everything that he's ever said to me became a reality. I wonder sometimes, is it my own making? Or is it something we could say beyond what we might interpret via the five senses, such as the power of the sixth sense and intuition? Now, over the years, I have continued to build this relationship with myself, who I see in my imagination. And he provides me answers. Over the years, when I've had challenges, or we could say crisis, I seek counsel and guidance with him in my imagination. We have conversations. And as these conversations play out, he reveals to me insights, perspectives, some of which I've shared throughout these videos, in which others have responded to me or reached out to me and said, that's exactly what I was going through. And that bit of information that you shared helped me. Now, I never said that this information came from him in my imagination, but it did. Now, there's a book called The Heavenly Life by James Allen. And here's an interesting quote, because what we recognize is that this journey really is about building a relationship with ourselves. I always say this, we can find the answers within. and we're guided via intuition to the realization of our visions. I also mentioned that you can go into your imagination. You can say travel into the subconscious world that exists within you. And you could discover attributes who oftentimes play out as characters in imagination, in which you can make peace with them. And how it translates is how we relate to others, how we relate to information, how we relate to environments, and so forth. The inward changes actually translate to behavioral change, transformational change, and other changes in our lives. So it's important then to build this relationship with ourselves. Certainly, we could do it in imagination, which is why I like to discuss often working with imagination, because we know that imagination has the ability to impress the subconscious mind, in which the changes or the suggestions are accepted subconsciously and play itself out in the outer aspects of our lives, our behaviors, our journey to realizing our visions, our goals, whatever it is. It plays out from what we suggest to ourselves within. What if we can continue building this relationship with ourselves? Now, when I was flying back, it was probably about a 3 or 4 hour flight, something like that. Most of my time was in the world of imagination, exploring and having conversations with him. We would travel, like actual sceneries, environments in my imagination, and we would have conversations like I would with friends that we would go for walks on and discuss various things that was happening in life and business, relationships, and so forth. And, they would share things about their own reference experiences, and you could relate over to their reference experiences, and it would be very helpful. The same process was happening in my imagination. I do it often, and thus I encourage it. And I believe it relates over to what James Allen says here in The Heavenly Life. He said a great teacher to his disciples, those who shall be a lamp unto themselves, relying upon themselves only, and not relying upon any external help, but holding fast to the truth as their lamp, and seeking their salvation in the truth alone, shall not look for assistance to any besides themselves. It is they amongst my disciples who shall reach the very topmost height, but they must be willing to learn. So, we build a relationship with ourselves, and we will recognize that there is an infinite reservoir of wisdom that is within ourselves, in the internal world. Many of you actually work with this in some shape or form and know exactly what it is that I'm talking about, although we might do it differently. Now, Maxwell Maltz describes 5 steps that we could work with this. And I actually want to tie this into the last video that I've done on being your own best friend, which I'm going to link in the description too, in which I brought up 6 ways that you could develop this relationship with yourself. So it becomes more vivid. And if you would like to, you could do it the way that I do. I actually imagine myself in a world with myself. He looks exactly like me. The only difference is that he seems to know more. He seems to be a person that I seek counsel in. He doesn't ask me for counsel. He is open, willing, and accepting to have conversations. We've talked about many things. And it has shaped my character, my self-image, because I know that he continues down this journey in the world of imagination, into higher realizations. And I believe that when I leave this life, I will merge with him and up we go, somewhere. We've had that conversation as well. So, 6 ways I brought up in the video. Number 1, have a good laugh with yourself. Number 2, learn to enjoy time with yourself in the same way you would with a friend. You could do it in your imagination, inner voice, I prefer the world of imagination because I recognize that creative ideas, inspiration, innovation, artistic expression is sourced from imagination by traveling this world in imagination with myself together. He reveals to me, shows me places, and I'm able to see things interesting that I've never seen here before. Sometimes it has different shapes and different experiences, and characters seem to show up in imagination. And there is nothing to fear because he's all-knowing, he's wise, and guides me appropriately. We could say, when you feel safe in your own mind, you realize that you can explore your own mind, and you'll actually find out that it is infinite, and it's happening within yourself. And what you'll also find is the synchronicity or the expression of what's in mind throughout the day. Certain symbols that I've seen, certain innovation, certain ideas which I infuse in my businesses, in my relationships, in every area of my life, were distinct ideas in which I had conversations with myself about. So let's tie this all in to these 5 steps here in psycho-cybernetics, because if I relate this over to Tuesday's video, and the realization in Tuesday's video is that there's one suggester. We suggest to ourselves, although it may appear that the outer world is suggesting to us, we still have the ability to question those suggestions, as I do with him. Now you could, as mentioned, do it like I do in imagination with yourself. And I continue to build this relationship, and I find that this internal world of imagination becomes even more vivid. I see that inner world as real as this outer world. I see them actually as one. And so we know, as we've been discussing, and we went through the Master Key System by Charles Haanel, the many exercises in reconnecting us back to the vividness of imagination, that what we imagine and assume to be true in imagination plays itself out in our behaviors, in our environments, in our experiences, in our lifestyle, we could say, which is actually sourced from imagination, because we know that all that information is impressing on the subconscious mind, because we know the subconscious mind is what's giving birth to reality. It's giving birth to what we see here. And we also know that the subconscious mind assumes imagination in its vividness to be the way it is. And the way it is seen in the imaginal activities or experiences is what is expressed artistically through conversation, through life experiences, and it's seen as the reality. Certainly, I probably never shared this experience to this degree before, but I have talked about it in certain ways in the earlier videos or the videos over the last few years. We'll certainly be discussing it. And it seems so obvious to me that I want to share this with you. So obvious. And you know what's interesting about this? Recently, and I noticed this actually on my trip, I met a number of individuals that have the same experiences. They travel to their inner worlds, and we sit and we had conversations about their inner world. And it's fascinating because as we get deep into these conversations, I find myself actually slipping more into a theta brainwave frequency and actually being able to see vividly in my own imagination exactly what it is they're imagining. And it feels like we're there in their imagination, my imagination, same imagination, through the conversation. And it's their world. And it's within them. Very interesting. So let's relate this all together. 5 areas to keep into consideration when changing the self-image, which, by the way, what I'm sharing with you right here is one of the most powerful ways to change the self-image. So much of my self-image change has been a result of having this conversation with my other self in imagination and realizing that that is how I actually am. He says, your built-in success mechanism must have a goal or target. This goal or target must be conceived of as already in existence now, either in actual or potential form. So there he is in my mind's eye, myself, knowing things and have experienced things which I one day will experience. And so he talks to me about it. Now, these could be related to specific goals that I have, business goals, goals in different areas of my life. Much of my life tends to evolve around entrepreneurship. So all things seems to relate over to my entrepreneurial goals, and my entrepreneurial goals seem to relate to all other areas of my life. Now, this might be the case for you, or it might be something else, but there seems to be truth in this, because if I know where I am going, then it is easier for me to have this conversation with myself, because I've already built the relationship with him. And I'm actually enjoying these conversations. And yeah, we laugh. He happens to have a very interesting sense of humor as well. So we'll notice this. These aspects or attributes, or that which we identify with self-image within, when experienced in our mind's eye, seems to represent an exact replica of ourselves and ever-evolving aspects of ourselves. And so I learn a lot of things from these experiences. And as I mentioned in number 4, accept and understand the unconscious programming. So let's go through these things here. Have a good laugh with yourself. Learn to enjoy time with yourself in the same way you would with a friend. Invest time talking about and encouraging your natural personality traits. Number 4, accept and understand the unconscious programming. Make peace with it, because perhaps some of this programming, which has embedded itself in our subconscious mind, might not necessarily be a result of our own unique, distinct thinking patterns. Maybe we interpret things to be a certain way. We then have the ability to release from those once suggestions that have become what we assume, or belief systems, let's say, as reality. It plays out. We'll notice this in how we relate to others, and we say, okay, that's disharmony. That's programming. And as mentioned in my imagination, when I travel, I find this programming in symbolism, in conversation, even characters sometimes. Which is why I like Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil. He seemed to have done the same thing. Recommend reading the book. Number 5, praise yourself first rather than looking for others to do it first. You'll actually get to a point, perhaps like I did, where you actually genuinely praise yourself in your own imagination. And that feels like the greatest praise. I appreciate praise and thanks and gratitude that I get from everyone that I meet. However, but working with this information, I've realized that I always can give it to myself within. And so I don't go out seeking like I once did for that. Number 6, recognize that you are complete and that you belong, because we know that the world of imagination is the infinite world, the source of all of this. And you are complete in imagination, and you belong in imagination. He is myself in imagination, and he takes me around in imagination and knows every place in imagination. Number 2, in relation to the 5 steps, the automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, operates or must be oriented to end results or goals. See, when we have goals, when we have visions, on the journey to realizing those goals and the visions, we go through the As I had referred to a number of times, I'll put a link in the description to the most recent video discussion on it. The spiritual alchemy process. Now you pick the goal. You pick the vision. You don't need permission or look around and get suggestions of how others are doing it. Go within yourself and find what you truly want to experience. And it could be a business goal, it could be an intellectual goal, it could be a spiritual goal, it could be a family goal. You'll know. Because whatever goal you commit to, that you truly love, that you truly want to experience, you'll go down the process to realizing the goal, which is the spiritual alchemy process. Watch the video I did. I'll put a link in the description to that. And then from there, he says, number 3, do not be afraid to make mistakes or temporary failures. All servo mechanisms achieve a goal by negative feedback or by going forward, making mistakes and immediately correcting course. But actually, when you have this conversation and you've got your own best friend within you, any of these so-called temporary failures or mistakes are reconciled within. Remember we talked about in last Sunday's video, the journey of reconciliation, our Neville Goddard conversation. I'll put a link in the description to that. That's what I believe is happening on any journey a person commits to. And again, commit to whatever journey you really want. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what journey. Certainly, I listen to his visions because his visions resonate with me. They are what I truly desire, what I truly want. And they were always my visions, what I truly desire and truly want. And all of these goals and visions allow me to go down the journey to experience these so-called mistakes and temporary failures and negative feedbacks because they reveal the programming within myself. This is a great way of revealing the programming within yourself by picking a goal or a definite chief aim or a vision and committing to it. Because that's when you face the reality of what's going on within ourselves. And you make peace with those attributes within ourselves. And then this inward relationship deepens. And then we're able to explore imagination with even more vivid detail because we realize we're safe in mind, as discussed in the Kabbalion. In the mother-father mind, all mortal children are at home. We only need to reconcile within to connect back to this internal peace in mind through a process of picking a goal. I've done this with whatever goal in my life. I see it as always the same thing happening. Every goal, every vision that I pick that a lot of times is challenging, you could say, takes me outside of my comfort zone. The reason why it takes me outside of my comfort zone or it challenges me is because I'm committed to revealing this programming. I want to know what it is that I have been unconsciously saying I am too, identifying with, because I want to identify with the true programming, that which I receive within myself, from myself, in imagination, and explore my subconscious mind in imagination to uncover this, which is done through these conversations you have with yourself regarding the mistakes and temporary failures, and so forth. Number 4, skill learning of any kind is accomplished by trial and error, mentally correcting aim after an error until a successful motion, movement, or performance has been achieved. After that, further learning and continued success is accomplished by forgetting the past errors and remembering the successful response so that it can be imitated. So, we're guided from within. I say this, and here's another way of me saying it. To whatever shows up, skill cultivation, challenges, negative feedback, making mistakes, any of these things. We're guided to self-correct from within. And as we continue to build this inward relationship, what you'll notice is what we talked about in Tuesday's video. The ability to maintain a mental state of harmony and having it reflect as others who represent different versions of that mental harmony within is automatic. Because what have we been doing? Some might look at that third party and say, well, he's got a lot of confidence. He's got a high level of self-esteem. Well, it is true, and it's really because of what's going on within the individual. So let's read this again here. Said a great teacher to his disciples, those who shall be a lamp unto themselves, relying upon themselves only, and not relying upon any external help, but holding fast to the truth as their lamp, and seeking their salvation in the truth alone, shall not look for assistance to any besides themselves. It is they amongst my disciples who shall reach the very topmost height, but they must be willing to learn. So we learn from within. And the truth is found within. As a person builds this relationship with themselves, such as perhaps in a way that I do, or you could find your own way, you'll actually discover that you're getting your own wisdom and truths from within. This has been my experience and many that I've spoken to as well. And they're willing to listen to themselves. Why? Because they have become the lamp unto themselves. And so number 5, he says, you must learn to trust your creative mechanism to do its work and not jam it by becoming too concerned or too anxious as to whether it will work out or not, or by attempting to force it by too much conscious effort. You must let it work rather than make it work. Let it work. Allow imagination to express, such as the conversations, insights, perspectives that you gather from being a lamp unto yourself, within yourself, in imagination. Allow it to express. You'll see it. Behavioral change, transformational change, people changing, reality changing, things change instantaneously. A lot of times you don't even know. Remember we discussed this in Tuesday's video. The assumption may have been, this is what the person said, or this is the action that they took. It is the energy that has been, and we're looking at this from the alchemical standpoint here, transmuted as a result of the mental change that reflects. Because remember what Nikola Tesla said, we have to look at this world, we could say thinking feelingly. The harmony, we also call this in alchemy, the marriage of the red king and white queen, thinking feelingly. And then we'll understand the nature of existence, energy, frequency, vibration. And we'll have a deeper relationship with intuition because we'll notice that we'll feel more. For me, what I find that these conversations that I'm sharing with you, this information, is actually information that I received from him in my own imagination, which again is myself. Now I trust we all have our own ways of working with intuition, such as what I shared here. It's another way of working with intuition. I like to work with imagination because then the reflection of it is in this world. And I like to see what I imagine in this world expressed as the goal or vision realized. So we want to be a lamp unto ourselves. We want to think for ourselves. We are the only suggester. I can say whatever to you. You can study books. You can have many conversations with people. But ultimately, you within yourself accept what you believe to be true or not. If it does not resonate, you don't have to accept it. If you go into your imagination and your imagination guides you as to what is resonant, then you will see whatever challenges and obstacles as opportunities to make peace with these attributes with yourself in imagination. And the changes occur in the subconscious mind and express accordingly. And that's why I always say, I value the journey and the destination, because when you get to the destination, you could say the self-image has changed, or more accurately put, you have become more of how you truly are. And for me, I am fascinated with every goal or vision brought forth, because then I have this deeper relationship with myself and imagination. And then from there, what I notice is that I listen to myself, I trust myself, I'm able to look beyond any five sensory data or interpretations of five sensory data and interpret it accurately from within from the truth within, which we all have access to. We all go through this journey. And then it expresses itself as, you could say, high self-esteem, high self-confidence, the ability to authentically express in whatever shape or form. Artistic endeavors, communication, relationships, business, all areas of our life. And this is a great way, very, you could say, creative way, fun way actually, to find the answers and live how you truly want to live. So back to the quote here in the beginning, the premise, the answer exists now. In much the same way we set out to find a new idea or the answer to a problem, we must assume that the answer exists already somewhere and set out to find it. And what we'll find is the answer is found within, in mind. All answers are found within, in mind. We might assume that, oh, we found the answer here in a book. It expressed itself in a book. It revealed itself in a book, but the answer was first found within. And so you can actually go into your imagination and read the book and have that conversation, or go into your imagination in some shape or form and find the answers. That's what Charles Haanel was talking about. I'll put a link in the description to that almost 2-hour video that I've done on the Master Key System. And the focus of the Master Key System was really attention in imagination and imagination. So I trust you found this to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an autosuggestion. We could say, I recognize that this journey is the revelation of my relationship to myself in my inner world, in which I find higher degrees of peace on the journey to realizing my vision, as I'm able to counsel with myself to find the truth, thus being the lamp unto myself, as I learn from myself, elevating my self-esteem, self-confidence, which is expressed in my behaviors, in my communication, in my artistic expression. Through this process, I build a deeper relationship with the day-to-day journey to realizing the vision. I value the journey and the destination, and I see them as one. I recognize that seeming failures, obstacles, or any setbacks are opportunities for transmutation, energetic transmutation, which is a result of making peace with thinking patterns that are associated to those aspects within my own mind via conversation with myself, because I am my own best friend. This expresses itself as harmonious personal relationship, business relationships, family relationships, and relationships with all in environment. I realize that all of this is a result of change in my consciousness, in which I have the ability to find the accurate thinking, intuitive understanding within myself via the relationship that I have with myself, which further develops each day on the journey to realizing my goals, my visions, and my definite chief aim. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.